In this video, we're going to be taking a look at Barriss Offee for the Vintage Collection. This is based upon her appearance from the Tartakovsky Clone Wars series. This action figure right here. For the most part, she is just a straight repaint of the original TVC action figure here. But as you can see, there are some noticeable differences, mainly with her skirt. Here it's much more poofy and has a lot more life to it. Here it's much more conservative. And instead of a painted face, this is utilizing the photoreal tech, and I think it turned out pretty well on this action figure. I've talked about many times how oftentimes the photoreal doesn't translate very well from a painted face. I think it turned out phenomenal on this. Eyes look good, nothing looks blotchy. Turned out very nice. I would say she's much more purple on this action figure, while on her more movie accurate version, she's much more blue. And it's nice having that variety. I can't say one action figure is better than the other. It just comes down to personal preferences, and for me personally, I like having both variants. I am glad that Hasbro did do some minor differences between the Tartakovsky Jedi here and then their original counterparts. One thing I do want to mention that was kind of brought to my attention recently, it's one of those things I was always kind of aware of, but you didn't really think about it till someone pointed out. It's interesting how in Attack of Clones and in the original Clone Wars, Barriss, I believe she was in her early 20s at this point, but then for whatever reason in the Dave Filoni Clone Wars series, they made her a teenager. I'm not sure why they did that. Just an interesting difference of how things have changed over time. I've mentioned it before, but I'm definitely a bigger fan of the EU Barriss Offee than what ended up happening in the Dave Filoni Clone Wars series, and then eventually Tales of the Empire as well. I go into more detail with that in the review for this action figure. So her hood and cape here are one accessory, and her head is actually not on a ballpoint. I don't think it's just kind of inserted in there. Let's see if we can take it out real quick. I've actually never really have done it with this action figure. Actually, it might be on a ballpoint. Let me see. Make it as easy as possible. First time that's been taken apart, so yeah. Actually, no, that's not one complete piece, but it is kind of deceiving. So you have her plastic cape here, and her plastic hood. Now, from my understanding, the original action figure of her here, it was originally supposed to be all soft goods for the cape and the hood included. But then they did a running change just before she was released to the public. Now, one thing is you can have Barriss displayed without her hood on, but then she has a little bit of the Kaminoan neck. Thinking back on it, I think it may have worked a little bit better for the original action figure. Yeah, fits on a little bit better. It's not too bad, but I understand why it is that way, is to accommodate for all this. But I would say more often than not, I'm going to be having Barriss displayed with her cape and her hood on. And let's see here. I think you pretty much have to put that back into place like this. Yeah, something like that. So for the rest of her, pretty simple. She does have the soft fit skirt here. Then her pants. She has the high heel boots on. In terms of her articulation, she is pretty well articulated. But she does have the ball joint at the head, as you can see. Then his shoulders, elbows, which go about 90. Then swivel wrist, swivel waist, and swivel hips, I think. Yeah. Then hinge knees and hinged ankles. So you can pretty much get her in most poses. In fact, the articulation, if there's any restriction to her at all, it's not so much the articulation, it's more of this plastic cape she has. She does fit on a stand pretty well. In terms of accessories, she pretty much has her essentials. Just the blue lightsaber here, which one thing I did want to mention is the lightsaber blades are different among the originals and the Clone Wars variants between Barriss, Luminara, and Ayla, who we'll take a look at next. Just different shades. And then an unignited hilt here, which I still have not found my unignited hilt for my original action figure here yet. I'm sure I will at some point. I do have it for this action figure. And it fits securely on her belt. But I think that's pretty much all I can tell you about Barriss Offee here. Let's see if I can get them all to focus here. See the differences between the two. Like I said, I can't recommend one over the other. They're both good in their own way. I recommend having both if you're a fan of Barriss. And quite frankly, this is probably going to be the best Barriss Offee we ever get from Hasbro. I can't really see them revisiting her ever again at this point, but you never know. Sometimes they pull some surprises, but between Luminar and Barriss here, these probably will be the best versions we ever get of them in 3 3/4 inch. At the time of this video, I think this Clone Wars variant of Barriss is usually pretty easy to find at discount chains like Ollie's even. For whatever reason, that Clone Wars wave ended up being overly produced, and a lot of the Jedi, especially from that wave, ended up plaguing retail for the longest time. And even though 3 or 4 years later, you can still find them pretty readily available, and then online as well. Most of the time, it's like $10 brand new. As for the original, it is a little bit more expensive, but it's not totally out of the realm of possibility. Just gotta shop around for a little bit. And as for the other Barriss action figures, I do hope to get the Dave Filoni Clone Wars version at some point. I do eye it every now and then. It's a little pricey, but since I have the Clone Wars Luminara, I would like to get the Barriss as well. And then there's also one from the Saga line, which was mostly a statue, I think, but I wouldn't mind having that one down the road either. And there's also a Hasbro 12-inch one as well from the Revenge of the Sith line. I have seen that in person a couple times, and I wouldn't mind personally owning that one at some point. I'm a fan of Barriss Offee. I think she's an interesting character. At least the EU version of her, that is. And that's the storyline I go off of for her. But great action figures overall. Happy they're a part of my collection. Anyways, that concludes this review. I hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned for playing more in the future. There's always more to come. If you haven't already, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. I appreciate your support. And check out the links in the description if you haven't done so. And as always, thanks for watching.